So this right here is a topic I've never heard anybody else talk about. This is the reason that both men and women end up dealing with toxic men and women, right? They lack sexual integration, right? So I'm gonna explain what I mean. So as a man, one thing I used to hear growing up all the time is don't stick your dick in crazy. I had to learn that lesson the hard way, right? Like most of us do. But the reason men stick their dick in crazy is because that woman's lack of mental stability makes it a lot easier for her to tap into her sexuality because it's not attached to any type of masculinity or leadership that comes with it. Like oftentimes a woman who has a certain level of mental issues, not everybody has a certain level of issues mentally. I'm not saying that anybody's perfect, but I'm talking about somebody who's legitimately a little bit crazy, a little bit off. A lot of times it comes from not having any type of mental stability in life, just going with the wind, no type of spiritual stability. And a lot of times in these instances, it's just somebody who's all over the place. And in many of these instances, it's like a woman will tap into her sexuality without tapping into her true femininity, right? So it's going to be something that's without any type of guidance or leadership. So when men deal with crazier women, oftentimes it's because a woman who's a little bit crazy, she could tap into her full sexuality without leadership being involved. So you can avoid having to learn how to lead as a man. You can avoid having to learn how to be dominant as a man. And she will give you the freedom to feel dominant with her because it doesn't take that much. You know what I mean? Or she may be sexually aggressive with you, or she may be trying to lead the situation, but she's doing stuff you want to do, so you don't really mind. It's like, all right, cool, we're doing this. I've gotten to a place in my life as a man where I want to lead my interactions with women. It's mandatory. It's mandatory. And I've learned that as a man, if you know how to integrate a woman, like if you know how to start things off in your own in a sexual manner, you know how to broach the topic of sex, you know how to integrate a woman sexually, you know how to take her to a certain place and then learn how to also make sure that leadership is an aspect of it. Women who have like who are crazy, they become less attractive to you sexually and non-sexually. That's often how it goes, because I've seen posts on Facebook and stuff like, women with depression are the best because they already want to die, so they'd rather have dick in their throat than oxygen. And that's an attractive thing to a man, like a woman who feels that way, like she'd rather suck dick than breathe air. Like that's, it's a joke, it's tongue in cheek, but as a man you feel that. But when a woman is very submissive with you, when she feels you on a certain level, oh man, when a woman feels you on a certain level, that just creates an effect to where, due to her devotion to you, due to her sexual attraction to you, due to her just feeling like you're just that nigga, she's gonna be willing to do all that and more, and listen to you after the fact on a consistent basis. See, the thing about those crazy women is they don't have consistency or stability with themselves. So how are they going to have it with anyone else? You have to understand that. And oftentimes for women, they put themselves in situations to where they are stuck dealing with toxic men because they don't know how to sexually integrate. The men who are sexually attracted to them are often men who they feel that they would be unable to get in a relationship, or they feel like that man is just a guarantee to cheat on them. And because of that, they feel like, okay, cool, I don't really want to date this type of person. And when you have that mindset, and it's not completely a wrong mindset, but when you have that mindset, you purposefully choose someone you're not that sexually attracted to date long term. So when a woman gets to the place where she's finally able or finally desires to let her hair down sexually, instead of putting on a veneer, instead of putting on her social mask for her relationship that involves sex, oftentimes it puts a woman in a situation to where the men who she'll be able to deal with will be toxic. Let's say a woman has a mindset to where she tells every man, I'm not interested in sex. I don't like casual sex. I don't want sex. Then she puts herself in a scenario to where the only men who will be willing to deal with her are going to be either weaker men who are willing to follow her program. It's going to be men who are duplicitous in their mindset and they're willing to lie to her or manipulate her, or they're hoping to seduce her over time instead of being upfront and trying to seduce her on the spot. Or she's dealing with a man who has so much experience that he's just bored with sex the same way she is. So he's not really pressed about it. He'll just get to it when he gets to it. He just has too many options to worry about it. And in these type of scenarios, those neither one of those situations rarely work out completely in the woman's favor. And I'm not talking about in the favor of her social programming. The nice guy will work out in the favor of her social programming, but she is probably going to feel sexually unfulfilled, and the sexual polarity is going to feel unfulfilled, and the way she relates to that man is going to be one where he has to walk on eggshells around her, around the topic of sexuality, around the topic of gender roles and gender identity, so that she will feel comfortable, so that he can still maintain getting sexual access to her. So oftentimes when a woman's in that situation, she's not comfortable in her sexuality. So in order to deal with the man, in order to sleep with the man, she needs to feel that he is already a man who she wouldn't want to date long term, right? She has to already have that in her mind. Like, okay, cool. I already know how this is going to fail, so I don't have to take responsibility for it. I can just deal with this guy who's going to, fuck my life up, and I'm going to just emotionally separate myself from it. And oftentimes it doesn't work like that. When that man brings a different level of masculinity in different ways, when he's bringing sensations to your body that trigger emotions that you're not used to feeling, oftentimes that'll leave you feeling confused. Like, and this is just a cycle that happens. So, like, these are the reasons why. So it's like, as a woman, after you learn how to sexually integrate, which means that you learn how to, you work on your internalized definitions of masculinity to choose a man you're more sexually attracted to just from the jump. And then you also know how to let the emotion of getting to know each other and the connection and the depth of it grow your sexual connection over time. Then you won't feel like you're missing out on something by dealing with this individual long term. These are just some things to understand. When that happens, then someone being toxic, someone being inconsistent, someone playing games with you is no longer something that arouses you. It's no longer something that piques your curiosity on the same level. Because you're like, well, I can get somebody who can talk to me on a regular basis and spend time with me, spend money on me, who's also going to treat me well, who can lead me in a good direction, who also is going to make me come hard as fuck on a regular basis. Why would I give that up for a fling that's probably going to last one time or a couple weeks or at the most a month or two? You know what I mean? Unless you have to, play the affair thing and create a situation like that. And that's just a whole other dichotomy I'm not trying to talk about right now. But these are just some things that happen. Like, as a man, you're like, well, why would I deal with this crazy bitch who is going to play games with me? She's going to be inconsistent. She's going to be always flip flopping on what she wants out of the situation. A lot of times, them sage burning bitches is like that. And she's all going to be flip flopping on what she wants and all that other stuff. And why deal with that when I could just deal with this woman right here who's going to be just as sexual, if not more sexual, who's going to be devoted to me, who's going to invest in me, who's going to spend time with me, who's going to grow her sexual desire for me based off of how much I invest in her, instead of just the mystery and the curiosity and triggering her ego by not giving her validation. In those type of situations, you can't sustain that. You can't sustain it. It takes so much work to sustain those type of situations that it's just not worth it most of the time. It's not worth it most of the time. But when you get to a certain place in your own mindset, in your own life, to where you know how to lead as a man, like dealing with crazy women, dealing with toxic women, it's not as attractive anymore. You get over that. You get over that. Now, I do think like a certain level of toxicity is important, because most people aren't integrated. Most people aren't integrated. So you do need to have a certain level of toxicity. As a man, you do need to have a certain level of mystery and intrigue about you. But just know how to transition. You do need to have a certain level of triggering a woman's emotion, her sexual response, without having to go through her emotions first. You need to know how to do that. You need to know how to take a woman's her high emotional energy, whether it's mad, sad, or happy, or laughing, or whatever it is, and turn that and trigger that into sexual desire. You need to know how to do those things. That's some toxic shit, but those are things that make relationships work. Those are not inherently good or bad. Those are things that happen with relationships when you have a proper masculine feminine dynamic and sexual polarity, right? But it also helps you to not have to need to be toxic, right? If a woman sees you doing domestic things and that turns her on sexually. Likewise, if you see a woman doing domestic things and that turns you on sexually, what that does is it puts you in a situation where you can have a sustainable sexual relationship along with non-sexual relationship. These are things that are really important to understand. Right? It's very important to understand this. So, that whole toxicity thing, it's like, I talk about toxicity. I'm toxic. I am. But I had to develop that. You have to develop your dark triad traits. Most women have a certain level of sexual attraction to dark triad attributes, like narcissism, being full of yourself, being sure of yourself, the high level of confidence. It turns a woman on. It makes her curious, like, why is this guy so fucking sure of himself all the time? And I talk like that. That's how I talk to women. I am. Women ask me, why am I so sure of myself all the time? And they usually say that before or after I done already busted open, and then now what? They come right back to me. Like, this is just something I understand. Psychopathy, right? Let's say it's psychopathy. Oftentimes, a woman wants a man who's willing to degrade her during sex, right? It's exerting your dominance. I call it the bigger fish theory, where a woman, what makes her comfortable is not going to be just a matter of a man making her comfortable and being consistent with her and emotionally empathetic and all these different things. It's a man who is bigger than what she's afraid of, making her tap into her dark side. A man who taps into his own dark side, that's a complete person. That psychopathy is when you're choking the shit out of a woman during sex. You're choking her to the point where she gets lightheaded. You might smack her. You might pull her hair. You might push her head into a fucking car door or into the couch. There's different things you might do. You might scratch that woman. You may bite her like you're an animal, right? She wants that. She needs that. She craves that. That's part of the dark triad traits. Let's say it's narcissistic Machiavellianism, right? Let's say you're in a situation with a woman where another man is encroaching upon your space. He's encroaching upon your territory. You have to know how to have a certain level of being calculating about how you deal with a woman, because sometimes her emotions aren't going to make sense, and sometimes you have to find a way to trigger those emotions in different ways. Like, it's somewhat Machiavellianism. When you trigger when a woman's emotions are triggered, and it's high emotional energy, like I said, whether it's happy, sad, mad, whatever it is, and you have a calculating mindset to where you turn that into sexual energy, that's Machiavellianism, right? These are the dark triad traits. These things are sexually attractive to women. And when you have these traits, that narcissism, it makes you, it improves your chances of career success. Your psychopathy, it improves your chances of career success and life success and survival. Machiavellianism, it definitely improves your chances of survival, and career success to a certain extent. Now, you want to have balance with these things. You want to be integrated with your dark triad traits, with your dark side, your shadow, but at the same time, you don't want that to encompass the whole of who you are, and you don't want to lean too deeply into these things to where when you try to build a relationship on communication and trust and valuing each other mutually, and on saying what it is that you want, need at the situation, and communicating that, you want to be at the point where you don't have to tap into those all the time in order to maintain the situation. That's what sexual integration is about. Because oftentimes when you tap into these things, you will hurt the person. Sometimes hurt is necessary. But after a certain amount of hurt, a person is no longer going to trust you. And even if a woman's actually attracted to you, after that trust is gone, it's going to be hard to get it back. And she may lose sexual desire for you as well. Now, if that sexual desire is high enough and that respect is high enough, then if you hurt the trust a little bit, what'll happen is you'll be able to still use that Machiavellian type of aspect of communicating with that woman and triggering her sexual desire to get you back close enough to each other and create that emotional response, that dopamine hit within her body through giving her orgasms that will bring you close enough together to have time to work on rebuilding the trust. But if you don't have that aspect of it, then once that trust is gone, it's just gone, and the sexual desire is going to go with it because it's based on your emotional connection. Then after that, your relationship is pretty much dead, and it's on to the next one, and it's probably going to be a repeat of the same cycle. Sometimes something Machiavellian is kind of like that movie Closer, right? Where that man's woman, she took, that a man, I forgot the name of the characters, right? But in that movie Closer, uh, the dude kind of set up this relationship, but then he ended up having an affair, being in an affair with this man's wife. Now, the husband, when they were about to divorce and they were getting over with it, he told her, like, all right, cool, let's do it one more time, and I'll leave y'all alone, right? Now, he was able to flip the script on the situation and get his woman back because he still loved her, he still wanted her, but she betrayed him. She had to deal with that pain of betraying that other man to get it back. I've done that myself before. Sometimes you'll be dealing with a woman, and her mindset just isn't at a certain place yet. She's about to repeat the same cycle of not feeling a certain way about a man and trying to deal with him. Sometimes, and it sounds fucked up, but if that's your woman, that's the woman you want. Sometimes you gotta know how to slide in and not just wait for her to be done dealing with the guy. You don't know what's gonna happen if they keep dealing with each other. You slide in, you fuck her again. You knock that shit out the box. Now, that other man has to deal with that knowledge of knowing what she did, or she has to deal with that guilt that's going to hurt the trust between the situation. And she's going to lose a lot of her curiosity with the man, or maybe not all of it, but she's going to be like, okay, cool, this is what I'm doing now. So you got to understand that, certain aspects of these traits are necessary to maintain relationships, especially in this day and age. But these are the reasons that people deal with somebody toxic, because they're willing to disrespect their boundaries or their own boundaries in order to make you feel good, either on a physical level or on an egotistical level. And these are things that people want. I don't think that these needs or desires are bad in and of themselves. It's just life, it's reality. But when we're talking about sexual integration, that is the reason. A lack of sexual integration is why people like to deal with toxic people, toxic and crazy people.